So Jasmine Mans, welcome to VladTV. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. How you feeling? You look fabulous, by the way.
Well, thank you. I feel privileged and good. It's warm outside, so I can't complain.
Okay. So let's jump right into the interview. You have a lot of people waiting for this. They want to know your story, so we'll go ahead and get started.
Yeah.
So let's start with your upbringing first. So we know you're from Newark, New Jersey. Across
Newark.
the bridge. The bricks holding it down. So talk about your upbringing and your childhood.
I'm from Newark, New Jersey. A lot of people say Newark, but it's like Newark, like
Newark,
one syllable.
like New Orleans.
Newark. Right.
Okay.
And so I went to the first performing arts high school in the country, which is Arts High School. I majored in TV production. I come from a two-parent household. I was raised in the hood. My dad used to read me Martin Luther King books when I was little.
Okay.
In terms of poetry, though, I came up in a church basement. We used to do poetry at church because that was free programming. And we used to always memorize Maya Angelou and Nikki Giovanni every single year. So as a kid in the church, I was frustrated, always having to memorize Nikki Giovanni and Maya Angelou. And that's when I became a writer, when I was like, no, I'm gonna write something. Girl from Newark who learned how to write through other Black women. And Newark has also an incredibly fruitful history that is so engulfed in the arts. When you think about Newark, you got to think about Amir Baraka and the Black arts movement, the 1967 Newark riots. And so I think my hood is is the core and the foundation that made me a poet.
Mm-hmm. So you said you came from a two-parent household in the hood. Now, that's pretty uncommon, especially nowadays in America. So what was that dynamic like, and how did it differ from your environment?
People thought that I was different. And I think that people didn't like me as much, or people took to me different, or thought that made a kid better to have two parents in their household. But I realized different things, different dynamics of having a mom and a dad who were raised in the hood, from the hood. Both of my parents are from Newark. So I knew the complexities of having a dad who worked till 12 a.m. and came home really angry. And so he didn't know how to be as nurturing. Or when he found out that his daughter was a lesbian. And coming home to a Black house, a Black dad with all of these different dynamics. So people took to it different, but I understand the levels and the dynamics of it. And then my dad is a friend. My dad is a dad to a lot of my friends. And so my homeboy moved in his apartment and he was like, "You think your dad could put this TV on the wall for me?" And of course he did. And so one thing about being one of the only people with a dad on the block is your dad becomes everyone's dad. And so
and I heard you mention that in previous articles, so I want to touch upon it because I can relate to that because I grew up in the hood in Harlem. We told you I was from Wisconsin, but I grew up in Harlem, and I grew up in a two-parent household, and my father served as a surrogate father for a lot of my boys who didn't have that, and they were able to pick his brain about certain things and just have that example of a positive Black role model who didn't have to sell drugs, didn't have to live that sort of lifestyle in order to, be successful at what he's doing.
Right.
So you said your father having his daughter be a lesbian. Now, can you touch upon that more?
Yeah, I didn't know how much I liked girls, but I knew I didn't like boys, right?
Okay.
And this was I didn't have to have sex with a guy to understand this.
And how early are we talking about?
We're talking about maybe junior in high school, then coming into my senior year. But then it wasn't until my freshman year of college where I saw a girl who I thought was beautiful, and I didn't think anything was wrong with being gay or liking a woman. And then I called my mom and I said, "I like someone. It's a girl." And I remember her saying, "If you're going to be a lesbian, that's on you." She hung up the phone. And then my dad, he sent me a text message saying, focus on your schoolwork, stop playing, da da da. And then from that point forward, they now understand that it's not a phase, and I realized that I had to teach my family different things and different identities. And now I know that they are more open, but my dad, because he doesn't know any better and because he's still growing, he has a narrative of that's not a real life. Mm-hmm. He can't manufacture the idea in his head of his lesbian daughter bringing home a wife and a daughter. Like he can't fathom those ideas. But I do feel like it's a part of my responsibility to bring those realities to the table and then to hold him accountable for those realities. Because I can't fault anyone for never understanding a lifestyle. But once it's here and it's in front of you, what do you do now? And I know the stories of a lot of queer children who don't go back home, who can't go back home. And so I do render myself very blessed for the type of parents that I have. But like I remember when my parents called me horrible names that I didn't think they knew. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, like coming home from college in a Black household to parents that didn't graduate is something. Coming home educated and gay to the hood to Black parents who didn't graduate these are incredible dynamics that we never think about. Yeah,
absolutely. So talk about the process of coming out. You said you knew you didn't like boys, but you weren't sure if you liked women, and then when you did realize that, how difficult
I told
was it?
Everybody. I don't keep secrets.
Okay.
Clearly, because I'm a poet. I like to talk and express my thoughts and myself. And so the moment that I really liked a girl, because I dated boys, but I never went past kissing a boy. I'm in college, still a virgin. Nothing. I had never had a sexual experience really. Mm-hmm. And then I see this girl and I'm I just meet her and I don't know what this actual emotion is. And then I realized I want to tell people. So mm-hmm. I told my mom, I hung out with her, and it wasn't a coming out thing. It was I saw a shirt and I wore it. Yeah. And so I think everyone else came out, and that's something I like to say where it's just when I tell you, I'm oh wow, I didn't know you had such disdain for queer people. I didn't know you hated gay people. I didn't know that it was okay for everybody else to be gay, but your child. And so you learn so much about the world when homosexuality knocks at your door. When a Black man finds out that his Black brother is gay. There's these huge, or when you find out your friend is gay and you're man, I slept in a bed with you. And so it's just these are these huge dynamics that I think heterosexual people deal with, straight people come out. Mm-hmm. Because it's now we see the complexities of the hate and the prejudice that was hidden before or that we didn't have to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. I can completely understand that because, your sexual orientation isn't something you decide. It's something you're born with. So the fact how other people react is more so them coming out.
Right.
However you feel is the way you were born.
Right.
So talk about, because I would say it's abnormal in the sense that, at least in my experience, most people have a lot of angst about quote unquote coming out or revealing to other people their sexual orientation. How much do you think your art played a role in your willingness to voice that?
I think it played a big role. It's so interesting that you asked that question. I think because I did speech and debate in high school, and that meant every Saturday I went to the suburbs of a white school and I competed against a bunch of white kids in debate. And so this was the greatest youth public speakers, right? Essentially we want our debaters, they go off to be, they go to become law students or whatever. But every Saturday, I was competing against these white kids, right? And I think that built something in me and my psyche that said, that made me bold and made me competitive and made me outspoken. Mm-hmm. And so at a young age, I realized that I could speak and that I wasn't scared of white people. And then And so I wasn't, so, and then I guess that, and that boldness, that strength, I guess played a role into like me not seeing or finding any difficulty or hesitance and saying like, I like women. But I do realize that like, I just put on my like Instagram bio, queer American Black girl poet. Before I was like, oh, I'm a Black girl poet. But I didn't find it valuable to say queer until maybe a year ago. And so I think that even though it was cool, or not cool, but even though I was comfortable and like when I liked the girl, I wanted to go out with her. I wanted to experience this. I was excited about it. But I didn't start like genuinely like labeling myself as a queer woman or a gay woman until recently.
And how do you feel about labeling yourself? Is that something you feel that you want to do, or you feel kind of obligated to tie into the movement, so to speak?
You know what? I didn't think much about it until I received an immense amount of acceptance. Then I was like, holy crap. This is different. This is good. This is beautiful. Like when I said queer, I got emails from like women in queer communities saying like, can we speak with you? Can you do this lecture? Or like when I said like, I'm gay, and then Black girls are like, yeah, because it is like, we call it like a triple handicap, being a woman, being Black, and being gay. So when a girl says like, I'm gay, I'm educated, and I'm popping, and you can't tell me shit, like girls support that. Absolutely. And I'm getting this huge response, and I always like to analyze, well, why am I getting this response? Who cares? And it's because like there aren't like there isn't too many young Black gay women who are talking politics and art in this way, and they want it, and it exists. Like these groups exist.